Going on, guys? So I'm back with another Sunday watch list. I'm gonna cover some of the setups that I'm gonna be watching, as well as economic data. This week we have Jerome Powell on Wednesday and Thursday again. Initial jobless claims Thursday and PCE on Friday. Those are all events we're gonna want to be aware of. Going into the watch list, let's start off with SPY as always. More clear on my charts and start on the weekly time frame, so you guys can see that this is an inside bar, right? This is last week's high, and this is last week's low here. So we're in between 430 and 444. So with that being said, we have been going up for the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks on SPY. Really more, right? These two red candles, we're still basically on the uptrend. We've been going up since March. Already almost 2 months of just continuing this uptrend. And this one red candle, it's not really scaring me out as far as it being like a huge reversal or nothing. It's just a healthy pullback. The market needs to pull back, right? So for the past 5 days, we have been getting that pullback. And as you guys can see, that those weekly levels that I marked on the weekly chart, 444 and 430, we're approaching that 430 level, which also happens to be a big previous resistance from back over here that could turn to support. So for bounces, I'm gonna be watching. Really, I want to keep an eye on the 4 hour time frame, right? I want to keep an eye on 432 because this was also like that top of that range that we were not able to break out of, right? Every time we came to 430, 432, we would get rejected. Even back here, really like even 429.6 area. This whole zone was a previous rejection zone. And once we did break it, we once we broke 432, we didn't really get the cleanest retest off of it. We broke it back here on June 12th. So here we are coming to that 432 area. I'm going to be watching 432 to 430 for a potential bounce. Anything below like this 429.6, then we have room down to 428 and 426. For the most part, I'm going to be watching to see if these levels hold here, 432 to 430, for a push back up into 435. And I want you guys to see this, right? This was like a left shoulder. We had a head and we had a right shoulder here. And that's why we're getting that breakdown, right? So if I go to the hourly, you guys will see a little bit more clear that this 435 level is a respected level, right? Let me show you guys why. We have support here, here, here. And when we're below it, we have resistance here and resistance here. So, if we do like for the bullish scenario, like really I want to watch a bounce here at 434, 32. But if we don't get down there and we come up early, this 435, I'll be watching for a break and retest for a push back up into this 437 area, like this area here. Yeah, we keep an eye out this 437 level, 436.9, 437. So if we get above 435, potential push up to here. And above here, we have a potential push up to really like 439, 440. And also something I noticed was kind of like this falling wedge that we're coming into. As you guys can see, we have like this falling wedge that we are starting to form here. And, the closer we get into this demand zone, this can definitely get a break of that area. So that's something I'll be paying attention to for this coming week. Definitely something I'm interested. As far as QQQ, pretty simple on QQQ as well. I'm keeping an eye on these levels very, very closely. This 360 to 361 has been a big level of demand. As you guys can see here on June 13th, we bounce. June 14th, we bounce. And here we are again, June 22nd, we catch a big bounce off that level. And this 361, we caught a bounce off of it off Friday. So this whole area is holding up. If we happen to hold up again, I will be looking to take calls. So, right, it comes down to the price action of how we approach this level. And if we sell off aggressively, then I will not be looking to take calls off of 360. I'll actually look for the break and retest of 360 to catch it down to 357, which is the next zone, right? Because what happens off 357, we get rejected, 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 right? And we have not fully came back to retest that 357 area, 357.6 area, right? So that's the level that I'm going to pay attention to. If we break this area, right, break retest down to here, and I'll look to take calls off that area. But for the most part, if this 360 does hold, we can definitely start going back up into these, back above 365. room to 367, 367, 369, 370, and so on. This is a whole supply zone up here because every time we do get up here, we tend to get rejected, right? So those are the levels that I'm going to be paying very, very close attention to. I have no bias, but I'm just prepared for either side, right? So going into some of the individual names, I have AMD. AMD broke a big level of previous demand here, right? This was previous demand that we held up, held up, held up, held up. And once we failed to hold it, we sold off and have been going down since, right? So as you guys can see, we've been on a downtrend on AMD, but we are approaching this 105 level, which is a big previous support and resistance level. Here we are again, right? Previous support back here. This 105, I think below 107, which was last week's low. Below this 107 area, we definitely could get a push down into 105, right? So that's one potential scenario on AMD. If this 111, 111.68 continues to reject, then I'll be looking to short back down to 107 and 105. But for the most part, this 105 level is looking like for the upside on AMD, a back above 111, it could get a push back up into this 116 and so on, right? But for the most part, that's what I'm gonna be keeping an eye on. But this 105 level could be a good bounce area, right? As we bounce back here aggressively and get a push back up higher. So yeah, it was a big resistance from back over here too. So I definitely think we could definitely have some continuation on AMD. Meta, right? Meta was really strong last week, one of the strongest tickers. If you go to Finviz weekly performance, Meta was up 2.45%. Amazon being the second strongest at 1.75%. So we go over Meta. I really like this Meta setup. Things get strong. This 290 area is a big resistance. You can see how it's a big support from back here, big resistance over here. Above 290, we could definitely get a push back up into 300. Literally nothing but room to 300. So that's a high probability setup that I'm going to keep an eye on. Breaking retest at 290, push to 300. So that's the scenario that I'm looking for Meta. And here we go on Googl. Googl looks really, really good as well on the weekly time frame. As you can see, this weekly hammer bounced off of a previous level of demand and the weekly 9 EMA. So I'll be looking for a break and hold above this 124.66, which was last week's candle's high. Above last week's candle high, we can push up to really like 130. It has room up to 130 or this previous high here at 129. So above 124.66, last week's high. As you guys can see, this looks like a weekly bull flag as well. Googl did hold up really nicely at this previous. You guys can see the reaction off this level that I have highlighted here as well, right? Previous resistance, rejected, rejected. And then when we're above it, we bounce off of it, caught a nice bounce off of it on Friday. So now if we happen to hold up and break back above those levels, push back up to these levels. So Googl looks pretty good. And another one that I really, really like actually is UPS. I really like UPS when it comes to key levels, and it's approaching one right now. If I'll go to the weekly time frame, which I'm on right now, what happens every time we come to this weekly 200 SMA, right? We usually catch a bounce off of it, except for these areas right here. This was during COVID, so. But for the most part, this 200 SMA does get respected, but it's not only because of that I'm interested in it. It's because it's approaching a level of demand, and that weekly 200 is a level of confluence. So this green zone that I have, the weekly 200 is inside of it. And look at the previous candles on the weekly chart that formed off of it, right? Some bullish hammers from 167 all the way to 172. So if I go to the daily chart now, you'll see the reactions we get off of that 166 demand zone, and we catch a nice bounce. Right, here we are again approaching it. So if we haven't approached that weekly 200 in this demand zone, I will be looking to buy calls on UPS with the stop loss right below that zone. My first target will really be like 171 to like 172. So the risk reward on that is really, really good. So as you guys can see, that would be like my risk to reward here. And that is a 2.7, really more because I'm trying to get entry on this area. It's like a 4-to-1, 3-to-1 risk to reward ratio. I'm gonna be looking to make my entry around this area. So that's a setup that I really, really like coming into the week. For the most part, SPY and Qs are gonna be my main watch. I really like those demand zones to see if they hold up. What else? Tesla. Tesla does look like a head and shoulders. So below two, we have to see if this 247.6 holds up. If it doesn't, it's getting a push down to 242. Right. So that's something I'll keep an eye on. Looks a little bit more bearish as of right now. Areas to get picked up off of could be like that 242. You have to see what happens though. Need a little bit more price action on that. Nvidia actually looked pretty decent as well. As you guys can see, Nvidia started rejecting these new highs up here, and this previous all-time high at 420 is now approaching. So if we can break that previous all-time high back down, we have room down to 413, potentially 405. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna be watching on some of those setups. Like I said, I don't think we're getting extremely bearish. It's just a healthy pullback. Like back in 2021 when we were on that uptrend, we would get those healthy pullbacks for a couple of days, and that's just how it is. So that's what I'm gonna be paying attention to for this upcoming week. And I hope you guys enjoyed the watch list, and I hope everyone has a great trading week.